Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The New York Giants go to Germany and lose in overtime to the Carolina Panthers by a score of 20-17. So Giants on a 5-game losing streak dropped to 2-8 on the year. Just rock bottom, I guess you could say. Although, I feel like we've seen a lot of this sort of stuff in recent seasons, but definitely good as far as the tank situation. Definitely one of the Giants lose this game. It got interesting at certain points, but ultimately the Giants never had the lead in this game. And that's been a thing I've been talking about in a lot of these losses. I mean, the Giants have barely had a lead in this 5-game losing streak. I mean, it's pretty crazy. But the Daniel Jones era is going to end probably pretty soon. And I wouldn't be surprised if Drew Lock is the starter coming out of the bye week. But we'll see, because it hasn't happened to this point. I thought that maybe there was a chance that they would consider going to Lock at the start of the second half of this game, to which they didn't do that. So I don't know. I mean, Jones was not good. And I guess in some ways the Jones talk is almost somewhat misguided, because it goes well beyond that. Look, I still believe in Brian Daboll to an extent, right? And I understand many people out there are probably frustrated with him, and I get it. I would like to see him with his own quarterback. I would. And look, Joe Shane I'm more critical of, but obviously it's a package deal. So I think even if things, let's say somehow, it's not going to happen, although I wouldn't mind if it did. But if they finish, let's say 2-15, even then, I mean, sure, that would be then it gets interesting. But I really think that unless things go kind of crazy off the field, Shane and Dable, I believe, will be back next season. So you're just kind of playing out the string in some ways. And I think that Locke and potentially Tommy DeVito are going to see some playing time coming out of the bye with 7 games to go. It probably is a good time to pull the plug on Daniel Jones for many reasons, including the injury guarantees. So you don't want to take that risk. He gets hurt, all of a sudden you're on the hook for something that you don't really want to be. So, look, this was a really poorly played game against a bad Carolina team. Now, they're coming off of a win against New Orleans, but this Panther, offense and defense, honestly, it's just Carolina is arguably the worst team in the league. Based on eye tests, based on statistics, like however you want to look at it. And they go to Germany and they lose to them. And it wasn't as if, oh, wow, it was a lucky one for Carolina. I didn't view it that way. Not at all. I mean, looking at some of the team stats, yes, the Giants, and obviously game script has a lot to do with this. Giants had more yards than them, more first downs. Both teams ran the ball effectively. More so Carolina, but Giants, it was a good rushing attack, which you'd expect. Carolina has the worst rush defense in the league, but just the inability to get anything going through the air is just disturbing, to be honest with you. And you'd expect that from Carolina. Their options are limited. Like, think about it from them. They traded Deontay Johnson. Adam Thielen has been out with an injury. They don't have a lot to work with. I mean, Chuba Hubbard is a big part of their offense in the run game, but Bryce Young is not a very good quarterback. He limited the mistakes. He actually played a pretty quality game for him, but the fact that we're even saying that is pretty fucking embarrassing. Like, Andy Dalton, at this stage of his career, gives the Panthers theoretically a better chance to win, but it didn't matter. And Tyrone Tracy makes the really big fumble in overtime. First play of overtime, Giants win the coin toss, elect to receive, of course, and Tracy fumbles the ball. And I feel bad for him. He was really distraught about it. It's funny, though. I mean, like, a lot of Giant fans, myself included, it's like this was a good thing. But yet I do feel for the kid. A lot of potential. Another good game for him as well. Like, definitely one of the building blocks that exists for this team. And there's not a whole hell of a lot of them to me. But, like Malik Neighbors, there's been ineffectiveness there, and that's not his fault. Clearly he's on 100%. Like, he doesn't look as explosive as he did, but also Daniel Jones is not exactly putting him in a position to succeed. And ever since Andrew Thomas went down specifically, it's been tough. Now, let's talk about a couple of lineup changes. So Evan Neal actually does make his first start of the season at right tackle. And you know what? Actually wasn't that noticeable. So you take that as a good thing. Didn't seem like he was that bad. Now, granted, you're going against the Carolina Panther defense, which is not very good. But hey, like, credit where it's due. He was formidable and didn't embarrass himself. So the bar is set low on Evan Neal. But so therefore, they moved Jermaine Illuminor to left tackle. So I would expect to see that coming out of the bye. And that makes sense. Look, you want to see what you have with Evan Neal. It's year 3. It's been really bad. I think it makes more sense to see him. Like, to me, that may have been a move, honestly, for evaluation and not so much thinking about it from win-loss, which I think is how you got to look at it. Like, Chris Hubbard, who did an okay job filling in at left tackle, like, he is not a future part of this team. So let some young kids play, including Evan Neal. I'm very much fine with that line of thinking because you got to evaluate and you got to see what you want to have moving forward. So good for Neal. It doesn't mean I'm optimistic about him, but he was all right. A couple of injuries of note. Now, keep in mind that Graham Gano returned and he missed the field goal. So Gano is back after hurting his hamstring in week 2. Jamie Gillen also returns. So the days of Greg Joseph and Jude McAtamney and Matt Hack are presumably done. I mean, obviously there could be re-injuries, so you never know. But so the Giants have the kicker and punters that we're accustomed to back, but it would be Jason Pinnock out due to I believe it was an abdomen injury, I think is what it was termed. So that meant a lot of Dane Belton. So, I mean, not like Pinnock's season has really been great, but Pinnock is someone that is on the field regularly, so a definite change. And Belton, I'd have to look it over again. I don't know. I guess I don't really have much of an opinion on that. Someone with more expertise, who has an all-22 sort of view of things may have a better idea as far as Belton. I didn't really notice him good or bad. But the really good running game, I don't know, actually. I'm not really sure if that was really anything to do with Belton. But so yeah, he was in starting for Pinnock next to Newman. And then it was Darius Slayton. As discussed last episode, he gets a concussion and he wasn't able to clear protocol. So that is a big loss. Jalen Hyatt took his spot, and Hyatt, he made a little bit of an impact, not much of one. He had an early, he drew a pass interference early, and then later on, he made 3 receptions in like succession on the last Giant drive. In between that, not a whole hell of a lot for Jalen Hyatt. So I think, again, Daniel Jones is a big talking point here. Trying to think if there was anything on the injury front. What was interesting, Ashawn Robinson would play a pretty big role as, in his first game against the Giants since he was on the team last year. Signed with Carolina in free agency, and he was the one that forced the fumble of Tyrone Tracy. He was the one, that made that happen, and he also had a sack as well, so that was interesting. But Isaiah Hodgins elevated. He made 1 catch, all right, with Darius Slayton out. Hodgins was on the active roster for this one. But, just from some individual statistics, Jones 22 for 37, 190 yards passing, no touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Just pretty ugly stuff, and it's beyond the stat line. There was a flea flicker, which we'll talk about, that was an interesting call on 3rd and 1, to be fair, right? I mean, especially when the Giants were running the ball well. But you know what? Like, Wan'Dale Robinson was wide open, and Jones didn't have all day long to throw, but more than enough time to get rid of it and find an open Robinson, and just couldn't pull the trigger and took a sack. It's just things like that. He's just not. He is hurting the team. That's just what it is. He is putting the team in position to lose games. Tyrone Tracy, 18 carries, 103 yards, and a touchdown, including a big, I think it was a 32-yard touchdown run, which was nice. Devin Singletary, he's the backup at this point, very clearly, 8 carries for 40 yards. And then receiving, again, the fact that Malik Neighbors only goes 6 for 50 says a lot. It does. And hopefully he can be re-energized coming out of the bye because, yeah, it's been a little bit rough for him. And he would leave the game for a little bit due to a potential concussion, but he cleared protocol. Wan'Dale Robinson, 5 for 51. Jalen Hyatt, 4 for 39. Theo Johnson, 4 for 37. And, yeah, as far as sacks were concerned, Brian Burns against his former team, he would get a sack early, but that would be it. I think that was maybe the second play from scrimmage for the Panthers. It would be a Burns sack. Kayvon Thibodeau, still out with his injury. What was it, a hand injury or something like that? Something to that effect. And sounds like he'll be back coming out of the bye, so that should help the Giants pass rush. Also, I should update, too, Giants did not make any trades. They did waive Nick McLeod, which was a money-related move. I think he was making maybe close to $3 million or something, and they were hoping that maybe he would take a pay cut of some sort, and they just couldn't come to any type of agreement, and so he was released. And so we'll see what the future of Nick McLeod is. I would assume that he'd latch on somewhere. Versatile player, fairly young, and so, I think he's useful, but where the Giants are, they made a money move, and so he's gone, and so that kind of takes away a little bit of your depth in the cornerback position. Deonte Banks, didn't really notice him much in this one. Again, Carolina doesn't really have imposing wide receiver options at the moment. But yeah, a lot of Banks, flop, and Adoree Jackson too, and Drew Phillips. I felt like I saw Adoree out there more than I had. Obviously, he had been hurt as well, but even still, felt as if he played a good amount. So let's go through the game. It starts out with Carolina going 3-and-out right away. And again, there was that Brian Burns sack where Bryce Young kind of loses his footing, and it causes Burns to get the sack. I'm sure that meant a lot to him against his former Carolina Panther club. Then the Giants would get a big play. It was a free play. Jadeveon Clowney jumps offside, and so they take a deep shot down the field to Jalen Hyatt, and it's pass interference. So basically, 43 yards effectively worth on that penalty. But the Giants then stall out at the Carolina 40-yard line, and what happened was on a 3rd and 8, a really poor throw by Jones in the direction of Malik Neighbors. Just a terrible job, and the Giants would punt it away. So Carolina gets the ball at their own 10 and goes 8 plays, 90 yards in 4 minutes. Xavier Legette with a 23-yard catch, Chuba Hubbard with a 26-yard run, a Chuba Hubbard 26-yard run to the Giants 6, and ultimately 3rd and goal at the 5, and it would be Jatavion Sanders, the rookie tight end, who would get the touchdown for the Carolina Panthers to make it 7-0. Then the Giants get the ball back, and they would get 1 first down, but then after that, they don't do anything, and they would punt it away. Carolina gets the ball at their own 9, and they're able to drive the field enough to get a field goal. So Jalen Coker with a 24-yard catch, Chuba Hubbard a 15-yard run, Coker with another reception, Hubbard with a couple more runs to give him a first down, and then Carolina, first play of the second quarter, it's Eddie Pinheiro with a 53-yard field goal to give the Panthers a 10-0 lead. Giants would try to match them, and they almost did, but not quite. It was originally a kicking short of the landing zone penalty on the Panthers. Jones would have a 10-yard run, then a 19-yard pass play to Jalen Hyatt, and then but once the Giants got into Carolina territory is where they just weren't able to get anything going, and a 43-yard field goal by Graham Gano is missed wide right. So that ends up kind of proving costly when you think about it. So Gano, it's been ever since he signed that contract extension, whether it be injury or ineffectiveness, just has not been great for Graham Gano. Before that, he was one of the best kickers in football for however long he had been on the Giants, which feels as if, what was he on the Giants since like 2020, either 2020 or 2021. Like he had been here before the Brian Dable regime, obviously. He was around during Joe Judge. And but Godot misses it, keeps it at 10-0. Carolina would then go 3-and-out. Miles Sanders actually got hurt. The backup Carolina Panther running back, he would leave the game and was carted off. Then you have then when Carolina punts, you have a situation where Amir Smith-Marset, the punt returner for the Giants, former Carolina Panther, gets into a bit of a tussle with one of the Panthers and ends up being offsetting penalties. But I thought that maybe he deserved more, I guess, if that, and technically it was. They gave him like a taunting penalty as well, but it ends up offsetting. Giants get the ball, and they move a little bit. They get Tyrone Tracy involved a bit, but this is where you get that flea flicker. 3rd and 1 at the Giant 49, and Daniel Jones takes a sack. So that cannot happen there. It's definitely a little bit of an odd call on a 3rd and 1, but that's where, like, they're not expecting it, and there was an open receiver, Robinson. I think there might have been another open receiver as well. So now the Giants have to punt it away. Carolina gets the ball back, and they go 3-and-out. So now the Giants have the ball with about 5 minutes left in the half. And Malik Neighbors with an 8-yard catch. Devin Singletary with a 1st down run. Wan'Dale Robinson, a 3rd down conversion, a 12-yard reception for him. Tyrone Tracy up the middle for 19 yards. We get to the 2-minute warning. And on a 2nd and 13 at the Carolina 21, Daniel Jones throws an interception. And that just cannot happen there. So Carolina gets the ball back, up 10-0. And it was intended for Theo Johnson, and I believe it was Xavier Woods that picked it off. So then Carolina gets the ball, like I said, a lot of Chuba Hubbard, but they get to around midfield, and they're unable to go anywhere from there. They have to punt it away. We go to halftime. So the Giants are down 10-0 to the Panthers at half. Just embarrassing to be shut out against this team is completely inexcusable. However, Giant offense would pick up a bit in the second half. They would get an opening drive touchdown to start the second half. Tyrone Tracy being the one that really gets going. Isaiah Hodgins makes his one catch of the game on this drive. And you get a situation where Wan'Dale Robinson, a 3rd down reception for a 1st down, a 5-yard catch when they needed 4. And then it leads to a 1st and 10, 32-yard touchdown run for Tyrone Tracy Jr. Again, he continues to really impress, despite the fact that he was, a big reason why they lost this game. He also was the reason why they got back into it. So that makes it 10-7, but then Carolina responds. That's the thing. That's where, like, the Giants, it's just like, that's losing football. So the Panthers are able to come up with a 10-play, 80-yard drive, and it would be Chuba Hubbard on a 25-yard run. And the Giants, a couple of Giants injuries on the play, but nothing that ended up being a problem. Burns and flop. So then Bryce Young scrambles for 24 yards for a 1st down. There was a DJ Davidson defensive holding that caused a 1st down. Chuba Hubbard for 9 yards. Then Carolina got themselves in a bit of trouble. There was a touchdown nullified by an illegal formation penalty, and then they take a false start. So what was 2nd and 1 at the 7 with a potential touchdown goes back to 2nd and 11 at the 17. The next play, it would be a David Moore 1st down catch to the Giant 4-yard line. And eventually, they would get it to the 1, and on 3rd and goal at the 1, Chuba Hubbard punches it in. A 1-yard touchdown run makes it 17-7, and things are looking up for the Panthers at that point. And then the Giants, especially so, because then the Giants go 3-and-out. And Daniel Jones takes a sack by Ashawn Robinson on this drive. Carolina has good field position. So here's kind of where things turn a bit. Carolina's looking good. They're up by 10. They have the ball at about midfield. And for some reason, they do 3 straight passes. When the run game was working so well, they switch it up, and it doesn't work out. It's 3 straight incompletions. And now the Giants have the ball at their own 4. And so this game was very close to really being close to over, but the Giants are able to find the way back in. And thanks in part to Carolina, but also the Giants made some plays. And the big one was a 3rd and 9 at the 5. So it would be a Theo Johnson 10-yard catch from Daniel Jones. And just good timing where Theo Johnson turns his head just at the right moment to make the play. And it was, again, like, if they make that stop there, like Carolina's looking at good field position up by 10 with not a whole hell of a lot of time left. I mean, a good chunk in the fourth quarter, but now the Giants move the ball from here. This ends up being a 13 play, 96-yard drive worth just close to 7 minutes of time. Wan'Dale Robinson, a 23-yard catch. Malik Neighbors, a 19-yard reception. And on this play, Neighbors gets hurt. It looked like it was a concussion situation, but he was able to return. Devin Singletary, a 14-yard run. A third down conversion on a Daniel Jones scramble. So they get into the red zone. And after a Tyrone Tracy 8-yard run to get it to the 2-yard line, it's a Daniel Jones touchdown where goes to the left side. Everyone thought that they were going to go to Tracy. He keeps it. Easy touchdown for Jones as he scampers again to that left side of the end zone. And it makes it 17-14. And things are kind of moving in the Giants' favor as Chuba Hubbard fumbles. It looked like he got hurt on the play. He ended up being all right, but he was in some pain, and he ends up fumbling on the second play. So there was an original offensive holding on the Panthers, and on a 3-yard reception, Drew Phillips causes the fumble, and it's recovered by DJ Davidson. So Giants now all of a sudden have the ball down 3 with great field position, but the Giants do what they do. This is what losing teams do. After a Theo Johnson 11-yard catch, and this one was close. Josie Jewell almost picked this off. Well, Josie Jewell on a 3rd and 7 at the 8-yard line actually does pick this one off. It was a Jones pass intended for Tyrone Tracy Jr., intercepted by the linebacker Josie Jewell, which was a really big play at the time. Again, Giants had all the momentum. Not a great play call because even if Tracy catches it, it's probably going to be maybe at best a 3-yard gain. It goes off of Tracy. So not full blame goes to Jones, more so like the decision to go there. But it goes off of Tracy, intercepted by Jewell, and now Carolina's in business again, up by 3 with not a whole hell of a lot of time left, but they go 3 and out again. Giants get the ball back, and the Giants themselves, they would go 3 and out as well. And there was an offensive offside on Wan'Dale Robinson as part of it, but an incomplete pass to Theo Johnson. So now the Giants, who, they could have gotten something there, they punted away. Now Carolina is in a position to maybe ice this game out. They come close to doing it, but they don't quite do it. A big 3rd down conversion to Xavier Legette, an 11-yard reception. And so now Carolina's in a spot where they basically need one more first down to end the game. Giants have used all 3 timeouts. It's a 3rd and 10 at the Carolina 32, and a Young to Chuba Hubbard play goes incomplete. Hubbard should have caught it. If he catches it, he had some blockers. Now, it's not definitely he would have gotten a first down, but it's possible he would have, but it goes incomplete. So it stops the clock, and the Giants get the ball back at their own 21. And with 2:23 left, the Giants are able to tie the game at the end of regulation on a drive where Carolina was very conservative. They kind of laid back a bit, so they didn't want to get the touchdown, but they did give up the field goal. And so the Giants kind of took what Carolina was giving to them. Malik Neighbors is pretty heavily involved on this drive. And Jalen Hyatt as well. Jalen Hyatt had a first down catch on a 3rd down. Theo Johnson, a 13-yard reception to get it into Carolina territory. But ultimately, the Giants just didn't have enough time to get down there. And so eventually you end up with a Graham Gano 42-yard field goal made with 5 seconds left in regulation. So, Carolina, again, they were very close to winning this game, is unable to do so, and the Giants tie it up. So now we go to overtime. And the interesting thing is this. Keep in mind, I wanted the Giants to lose. I did want Carolina to get the ball first. However, I was aware of the fact that, look, this is more of a defensive game, and it could actually benefit the team that doesn't get the ball first, because the team that gets the ball first has to get a touchdown in order for the game to end. Well, what happens on the very first play of overtime? Tyrone Tracy fumbles the ball. A'Shawn Robinson's the one that punches it out. It's recovered by Josie Jewell, and it sets up Carolina in very good field position. And they would get some yardage, not much. They would basically accumulate about 5 yards on 3 runs by Chuba Hubbard. And on 4th and 5 at the Giant 18, Eddie Pinheiro would line up for a 36-yard field goal, and he would make it. So Pinheiro, 36 yards. Carolina wins the Munich game 20-17. And this is a really big loss for the Giants. They're now 2-8. Now, here's the thing. The Giants have a really good strength of schedule, and that's problematic when it comes to tiebreakers for the draft pick. So it's not going to be easy for the Giants to end up with one of the top picks. Just keep that in mind. However, this was really big when you consider the fact that Carolina is one of your biggest bouts of competition. That's a really big loss to get. There's a lot of other discussion and like bigger view talking points on this team because, look, things are really bad. As much as I'm pleased by the fact they lost, like the fact they lost Carolina is pretty disturbing. And I think that changes are probably ahead coming out of the bye. I think it's probably the right time to pull the trigger on Daniel Jones. They may ride with him. Like, I'm not saying it with certainty, but if I had to make a hunch, it would be that he's probably going to be benched for Drew Lock against the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, the Bucks, they are 4-6, but they're not that bad for 4-6. Now, granted, Chris Godwin's out for the season. Mike Evans has been out, but I think the plan is for him to return. They really need that game. It's at MetLife Stadium where the Giants are 0-5. I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here because I kind of have PTSD. That feels like one of those games that the Giants will just like win randomly. But I can make that case for a lot of other times too. On paper, they should not win that game. One game that kind of concerns me now, very much so actually, is the Giants versus the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. With no Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush currently as the quarterback for the Cowboys, Giants have a legitimate chance of winning that game. So that would be very unfortunate. We'll get there because, look, that's a few weeks away. So no sense harping on that now. But the point is this, like, these are going to be some pretty critical games because the Giants do have an opportunity to get a really good pick. But it's not going to be easy, but this was a step in the right direction. The Giants go to Munich, and they find a way to lose to the lowly Carolina Panthers in overtime by a score of 20-17. The Giants are now 2-8 and are on a 5-game losing streak.